All right. Good morning, Recovery Posse. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Sober Heathen Podcast. I am Scott. I am sober. I am a heathen and bringing to you another guest today. Very excited. We get to put Florida on the map of guests that have been on the show. That's so cool. Florida is one of my favorite states. Only been there a few times, played some baseball down there. Oh, wait. Yeah. Yeah, I think I did. But anyway, off topic. Just wanted to remind everybody last night, Rich S. and I did a Twitter space. Did it around 7 o'clock last night. So go ahead and check that out. The recording is up and available on Twitter if you want to check that out, or shoot me a message on Twitter or Facebook and I can get you a link. So gonna get right into it this morning. I will tell you, Amy, that last night I had a borderline nightmare that, and this is the first time it's happened since I've done podcasts, that all hell broke loose. There was an interview. I don't think it was you specifically, but because this was the earliest one, I was having some anxiety about, like I woke up, it was about 5 o'clock this morning. I'm like, oh my God, did I oversleep? And I checked my phone. I was like, oh, I got some time. But yeah, last night it was about doing a podcast. I had forgot about it. I had to do it from my phone, and it just everything was going crazy. So I hope that this goes a lot better than what my dream did last night. But Amy, welcome to the podcast. Tell us where you're from, and a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, I'm Amy. I'm an alcoholic. Jacksonville, Florida. I've been here for about 5 months. I have lived in the sobriety world since 2016. I did have a relapse. So there's two important dates in my life: April 30th, 2016, excuse me, and June 10th, 2020. Little bit about me. I have to keep fixing my phone. I guess, share my experience, strength, and hope in my backstory. So I am a kid that came from and I'm a 50-year-old woman, by the way, and still feel like a kid. Came from a lot of dysfunction, and alcoholism runs very deep in my genetics. And I don't think that necessarily that's absolutely why I became an alcoholic. But my chaotic childhood, I think, delivered absolutely no coping skills. And eventually I picked up alcohol because I just couldn't exist in the world. I just didn't know how. So, my mom was a borderline personality disorder, bipolar, could not care for us. My dad was a rageaholic, a good man, though. He did end up having to raise me at 8 years old by himself, and that was really a tough task. I am the youngest of four. I am the baby, often referred to as Peanut, even at 50. I am a mother. I have two daughters, 19 and almost 21. And I was actually afraid of alcohol. I knew that, having a family full of alcoholics, that very well could happen to me. So I was, I did drink in high school. I did normal stuff. Had alcohol poisoning so bad. I'm sorry about the frog in my throat. At 15, that I literally was like, I am never doing this again. And life got lifey, and I started to pick up alcoholically at 34. So that's a little late in the game. Drugs aren't necessarily a part of my story, but an eating disorder is. So as I kind of go back and I unravel, how'd this happen? What led me here? And this is important because it's a part of the ism.
Sure.
I never felt worthy, good enough. I had what we most of us have, this fierce perfectionism, wanting to really look perfect on the outside and have things like very neat and pretty on the outside. Internally, I was just a hot mess. So I actually had a eating disorder for 17 years,
Oh,
and
wow.
I kept that that was locked down. That was my horrible secret. Um, but as I really understand what that was my way of having control in an uncontrollable environment. Um,
Sure.
I couldn't manage anybody else, but I can manage me. So 17 years with that, and that should have took me. That should have killed me for sure.
Wow.
Um, and it didn't. Thank God.
Right.
So I stopped the eating disorder behavior, went to the doctor. My husband, I was married for 19 years. I was with the same man for 28, almost my entire adult life. Um, and I got into treatment for that. Um, Still never really understood the core of what was going on with me. Um, and I remember my doctor saying in the doctor's office, and I still love this doctor so much today. He said, Amy, there's a extremely high percentage of women with eating disorders that will become alcoholics. And I'm like, mm, that's not going to happen to me. That's not going to happen, because I was one of those people. I would look at family members drinking and I would judge them.
Sure.
It's ironic what happened.
Yeah.
Um, and things get, difficult. And, my kids, I have one child on the spectrum, and we had a lot of stuff going on with OCD and all this stuff. It's not their fault that mom chose to drink. I just didn't know how to handle the fire that was going on in the house every day.
Sure.
So I loved my 4 o'clock glass of wine. I loved it. And I was one of those classy women drinkers where I had a really cute glass and a little charm on it. And I'm like, oh, I just love my 4 o'clock glass of wine. Well, that glass of wine felt so good. It gave me that euphoria. It took away my stress, my anxiety, my chronic fears, my insecurities. And you know what happens.
Sure.
That daily 4 o'clock glass of wine turned into a blazing inferno where I am a blackout,
Hmm.
fall down drunk for 5 years. Um, and I did that all in front of my kids. And that is my deepest regret to this day. And I'm still working on forgiveness for
Sure.
myself.
Sure.
Um, I do have one daughter that is estranged from me, and that's okay. That the program teaches us acceptance, and I've made amends, but not to her liking. And God's got that. I had to surrender that to God. Um, but that is why I'm in Florida. My kids moved to Florida 3 years ago, and that was the biggest wound, like not being with my kids. So after a 5 year relationship ended, I said, I need to go and be with my kids. So here I am. Um, yeah, I don't know. I came to Jacksonville alone. I moved on my own across the country. And I've got to tell you, in terms of like the quality of sobriety, everything changed for me when I moved. One, I found my strength in doing something that I never thought I could do. Two, I immediately got into meetings here. Um, and I'm in a different place than I've ever been, ever. Deeply introspective, really looking at, those childhood wounds that probably caused, the alcoholism or the behavior. Looking at me, and it's a little late in life, and I'm trying to not judge myself. It's like I'm 50, and I don't have my together, but I feel like
Oh
I'm on
man.
my way.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, we're human.
We are.
Uh, so yeah, I mean that's the background. I did have a relapse in 2019. Now, relapse does not have to be a part of people's story. It is often. And there's two things for me. Like, I wish it wasn't, but I'm so
Sure.
glad it was.
Right.
So, it kind of made me, look at, okay, first of all, I stopped going to meetings. I stopped calling my sponsor. I was in a really toxic environment, not a healthy relationship. And I rested on my laurels and I picked up. And that was like a nuclear holocaust.
Yeah.
Yeah. I picked up right where I left off at after 3 years of sobriety and proceeded to drink more than ever.
Mm.
And I absolutely wanted to die. Like, I didn't see a way out. Um, but pulled up my big girl pants and I got a hold of a sponsor, a woman, a wonderful woman in sobriety. And I got back into the steps and the program. And, it'll be 3 years again soon, one day at a time, knock on wood.
Right on.
So that's where I am.
Awesome. So you said that you had a relapse. How long did you have before that relapse happened?
3 years.
So 3 years. So 3 years again. So how long did the relapse happen? Was it a one-time event? Was it a length of time?
Yeah, it was probably 6 months or so.
Right on. Right. No, I think that's important to talk about. And here you are again at almost 3 years. And you mentioned that relapse doesn't have to be a part of your story, but it's a part of so many of our stories. Um, it can either you can either let it break you, or you can get up and put your big girl or big boy pants on, like you said, and keep fighting. And I hope to not experience that ever again. But like you said, again, we are human, and life. I wrote in my notes here, life got lifey. Life will get lifey on you when you least expect it. And being in what the situation that we are with this stupid disease, and um, it can bite you in the ass very quickly. Um, you talked about your kids and drinking in front of your kids. That's some of my biggest regrets. I talked about that a little bit yesterday on the Twitter space. Just I don't know if you've listened to it yet, but Gail M was on the podcast. I believe she was my second or third guest on the podcast. If you haven't got a chance to listen to that, she tells a great story. She's been sober for decades. Her children talk to her, but it is not good. That's not where she wants it to be, and she has learned to be okay with that. She's learned through the program that we can't change other people. We can just do the best that we can, and we have to accept who they are and what they think. And I hope for you. You seem very genuine and a great person, that everything comes around. And it was just really inspiring to listen to Gail, and how the acceptance just comes through. You know what I mean? And you can tell that and you can tell with you that you absolutely love your children. I mean, you moved across the country, right, to show good faith, and you're doing the right things. But at the end of the day, we can't change it. And so I think that's a real show of strength. Um, Man, so much here. I think one thing too, I wrote down here, you hear a lot in the program that you don't want to rest on your laurels. And it took me a while after being in the program to actually look up the definition of what the laurels meant. We get comfortable with our laurels, which are our achievements. I've got 3 years, I've got 90 days. I don't need meetings anymore. You kind of alluded to that. You stopped going to meetings. We rest on all these accomplishments that we got, and then bam, it's we got sober by doing certain things, and when we stop doing those certain things, it can come right back and get us.
Absolutely. It's maintenance, and it's a daily reprieve because my brain is alcoholic. That will never change ever. I crossed that line. So I do know. I sit in some meetings here in Jacksonville with people that got 50 years of sobriety, literally. And they're showing up at meetings 3, 4 times a week because our brains need to be reminded, regardless of how long we have. It's a beautiful achievement, but
Mhm.
we only have today.
Right.
And tomorrow I can wake up and do some boneheaded things, and then stop going to meetings, and then boom, I'm there again.
Yeah,
I'm not doing that. I will not do that. Not today.
sure. Yeah, and it's really important to keep it finite like that, 1 hour, one day at a time. I know the amount of effort, and you can speak to yours, that I went to make sure that there's alcohol available for me to drink all day and all night long. I know
Yeah.
the kind of effort that I put forward to do that. If I don't put some sort of effort that's equal to that, at least in these early years, I'm in big trouble.
Amen.
Uh,
Amen.
yeah, I totally related to you when you talked about no coping skills. I was raised with my great grandmother, zero coping skills. It was just one big blanket, warm, fuzzy blanket of great grandmother love. Never got to experience anything until I experienced it when I was out from under that blanket. And it punched me right in the face. I am at least a fourth generation alcoholic. I know that doesn't automatically make you an alcoholic, but it certainly gives you the prereqs to it. I too said I was never going to drink after what I saw my family going through, like the shit show that my family was. I was like, I'm never going to drink. And then 1 month before I turned 21, I made it all the way through high school, never had any interest. I was actually very adamant against it with my friends. Like, I ain't drinking. I ain't doing that stuff. And then a month before I turned 21, my roommates got some Mike's Hard Lemonade and one bottle, and I'm off to the races, man. I was free as a bird. I could say what I wanted to say. I was confident. I was funny. I was all these wonderful things that I could not possibly be without a bottle in my hand. So I totally relate to that.
Amen. And I remember that so well. Just that, just euphoric. Whoa, this just took me out of myself.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
this is a circus. It's still a circus. It is still a circus. It's just that I'm better at surrendering the circus instead of being a clown in it, daily. Um, one thing that's, I think, really cool about where I am right now, and again, I hope I'm in the same place tomorrow, is that I'm actually way more aware of my defects right now. And I've gone through the steps, because AA is how I became sober, and I love AA, and it's not for everybody, but it is what saved my life, absolutely. um so now that I've become more aware of Amy and how I tick, and I think, since I got originally sober in 2016, I think I kind of knew, and I did what I needed to do almost robotically with the steps and inventories. I mean, now I'm actually, there's some switch that went off in me, where I'm like, okay, these are your defects, and like, you sister, you need to work on these, because it's not just about drinking anymore, it's about emotional sobriety. um I've looked back and I'm like, man, you are a chronic people pleaser,
Hmm.
um a fawner, a caretaker. um I'm highly empathic, and those things are really beautiful things. There's nothing wrong with those things. But when you make people your higher power, and you think your whole sole purpose on this earth is to serve, comfort, manage people's emotions, and take everybody's temperature, you're not going to live a fruitful, peaceful life. So, I'm working on those things today, because I want love. I want, companionship. And I know that right now, as I'm working on me right now, that's not something I need to be doing, because for the first time at 50, now I actually am doing the work on the emotional sobriety side. It's kind of a big deal and it's super painful. It's so
Sure.
painful. But it's working. It works, you know. I'm just really grateful.
Yeah, well, you can, the smile says a lot. If you could, and Rich and I have been doing the Twitter spaces, and we're kind of throwing topics out there on Twitter, talking about, sponsorship. Is it for everybody? 12 steps. There's obviously multiple pathways. I'm an AA guy too. I enjoy it when the people are right. Um,
Mhm.
there's ego everywhere you go, and it can certainly creep into an AA meeting, with the looks you get when you walk in the door, you're the new person. And I've felt in the past walking in the doors that I have to prove myself. I have to, say things like, well, the first 164 pages haven't changed since it was written. See, I know, the promises are on page 83 or whatever they are, just to kind of to let them know that I'm for real. Talk about, a lot of people have a lot of anxiety and fear of AA. So, the AA process, it doesn't say it in the big book, but the process is find a sponsor and work through the steps with the sponsor. And steps 4, 5, and 6, those can get tricky, and there can be a lot of fear, and that's what you're basically addressing in those steps. But there's fear, like giving in. Was your experience, was the first shot the ticket? I mean, did you find a sponsor and you go through the steps and start to feel better, or did it take a couple sponsors? How did that go for you?
It took a couple of sponsors for me. Um, we're human, and I mean, you really do need to have some sort of connection, with your sponsor. Um, but I did jump in. I went through the steps to the best of my ability at that time where I was then.
Right.
But I want to make sure I'm plugged in. And then I've had a couple sponsors since. My current sponsor, who is back in Indiana. I was in Indiana for a couple of years. Um, Good old solid big book sponsor, and we did it the old fashioned way, and that helped me, and that took 4 years. So I don't know, since 2016 to now, despite the relapse, it all makes sense. So that is the recipe. Dive into the book, find a sponsor, get honest,
Sure.
stop your bullshit. I mean, you really do have to look at yourself deeply, and that's super hard, and it takes a long time. So
Yeah, I think
yeah.
yeah, I think it's a recipe. I think that's a great way to put it, because everybody, there's a recipe for this, but you got to put your own ingredients in it sometimes, or,
Mhm,
sometimes you're allergic to certain things, so you keep that out, so you add something else to it. I
mhm,
think that's a great analogy for that. And I wanted to ask that question because having multiple sponsors, when you go out and you found a sponsor and you get into it and you're excited, and all of a sudden it doesn't feel right. It's not a marriage. It's not something that you have to commit to. And it's not really, you don't have to look at it as feeling bad. Um, this is life or death. So you got to do what's right for you. So if your first sponsor doesn't work, that doesn't mean the program's not going to work for you,
sure.
and you absolutely, and hopefully maybe you agree, maybe you won't, but going through the steps one time isn't the ticket either. That's not, it's a continuation of things. And I know it's really, it's put to me that the big book is a study guide. It's a textbook.
Mhm.
And, I'm on my second big book. My first one was a soft cover and it looks like a rainbow. I went through it with so many different highlighters and tabs or whatever. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to get a hardcover, and now that one looks the same. So you find something different every time you read it. And I do think it is a good tool. It is not, it's not for me, the end all be all. I've experienced some other things, but my recipe is different than yours, right? I'm going to use that analogy forever. So thank you for that. So
Yeah.
yeah, move across the country. I had that in my notes too. That's a big step. That's a big gamble, and you've already connected in the community. It sounds like, huh?
I did. I jumped in like the second week. Um, I got here and like moving is complicated. So the moving truck didn't come for 2 weeks. I'm sitting in an empty apartment and I'm sitting in self-pity. I'm terrified and oh, woe is me. I had to buy a blow up mattress. I was in a hotel for a while with the dog and um it all worked out. But I was getting nuts.
Sure.
I'm like, I want to go home yesterday. Like this was a giant mistake. And it wasn't a mistake, but I was living in the fear. The fear was absolutely bigger
Fear.
than me. I'm like, I'm
Yes.
not going to meet anybody here. Maybe my daughter will never talk to me again and be
Uh,
alone, blah, blah, blah. And that's okay. I swam in the pity party for a little bit. And then I just tried to just accept it. Like, okay, the moving truck's coming. My stuff will be here. I need to go to meetings. So I started right away. And that was scary too, because you go to a foreign state. I mean, another state. It feels like you're just in a foreign country.
Absolutely. And
All of a sudden, there's palm trees and lizards, and
it,
um, everything smells different. And I don't know. So this is kind of cool though. So I did dive in, pretty quick, and I ended up at this Friday night meeting at a Methodist church. And me personally, I like church meetings rather than I like clubs. It just feels better for me.
sure, sure.
So I end up at this meeting with this like amazing woman, and she's actually going to be a pastor, and she's in the program. And this woman has like just rocked my world, changed my life from a spiritual perspective, AA perspective. Um, and then other meetings have come, and I have friends now here, and I feel okay. People move across the country all the time, but for me, like in that moment, I was like, it's only me. It's all about me, me, me. This isn't,
Right.
people do this stuff every single day, you
That's
know,
that. I
not
love it.
a,
That is
so
that is great example of creating scenarios. It's what we do. We create doomsday scenarios in our head. The truck's not coming. I'm never going to find anybody. This was a huge mistake. I totally can relate to that. And I think a lot of people can relate to that too. And it's very, very weird that you come on today and you talk about moving across the country. There's opportunities are not presenting themselves here where I'm at right now, but there is an opportunity for me to move from Michigan to Texas. Um, friends down there, really good people that have helped me out in the past, have offered some pretty decent help. And it's just really weird that you come on today and you talk about that. And it's something I really don't want to do because my kids are here. I'd be doing the opposite. I'd be going farther away from my children. But bills need to be paid. So I just think that's a really weird coincidence, that you have moved and it's a story of hope and success. So that's very interesting to me. So
that's awesome.
yeah, is Tinkerbell, was it? Is
Yeah. Do
just
you want to see her?
yeah, might as well be the first pet on the Sober Heathen podcast.
Oh, Tinkerbell. That's
Hi,
Tinky.
Tinkerbell. Hi.
You know what? She's my best friend, and this dog has saved my life.
Oh,
Honestly, like, in the depths of depression, I was, post divorce, like this dog kept me hanging on. So I'm so grateful for her, and she tolerates, her batch crazy mama sometimes, and this is unconditional love, like, you know
absolutely.
we, we can unconditionally love humans, and that absolutely exists, but this is something that is, I don't know, I don't think us humans can touch, this kind of love. So
No,
I'm grateful for her. um I will keep you in my thoughts and prayers. Like, transitioning is really hard if you do end up doing it. um but you know what, when you're on the other side, if that does happen for you, it's incredible. You will find a courage, um, e- even a peace that you'd never known. Like it's one of the hardest things to do. Um, and I'm not special by any means, but for me it was a really big deal. I was so scared, and I'm really glad I did it. You
Right
know,
on.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna put
it's
it.
it. Yeah, it's that by Tinkerbell. It's that the fear, of, is what is the want overpowering what's the logical and right thing to do for me. But yeah, it sounds like that coming up on 3 years again, you're really practicing the steps and following the program of AA and really able to, I mean, like you said, it's not perfect. It'll never be perfect, but you're able to catch these things and these thoughts and work through them. And I think that's a beacon of hope for people that hopefully that listen to this that are struggling, that and that a lot of these cliches are beat to death, but it does work if you work it. If you're willing to face these things and talk them out, it really can work.
It does work
Yeah, well, living
for
proof.
me.
3 years, three
For
years
me,
is an eternity to me. 3 years is it's something that I can't even imagine accomplishing that, and you've done it twice. So, huge congratulations to you. I wish you nothing but the very best, and I will keep you in my thoughts as well. And I hope that your continued hard work, is enough to show the people that you want to see it. They see it, and nothing but good is in your future. And 50 years young, that ain't crap. You got a lot of living to do, and it don't uh that's another. You don't look anything like 50. You're doing great, and just enjoy every minute. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
thank you for having me. I hope you have the best day. I'm gonna start working soon.
All right, well, enjoy work, and maybe we'll when is your 3 years? How long you got before the 3 year anniversary?
June 10th.
June 10th. Okay. Well, I maybe we'll give you an invite back for the panel episode I want to put together, because I think you'd be a great speaker on behalf of AA, somebody that's been through it and likes it. So,
And I wanted to mention really quick, Scott.
sure,
Thank
sure.
you for doing this. Like, this is a big deal. So what you're doing in contributing to people's sobriety, planting the seed, the mustard seed, having people on, it's a big deal because I don't know if not hearing stories of other people that have gone through sobriety, where you're hopeless and you're like, how do people do this? It's like a maze, it's a Rubik's Cube. So what you're doing is, you're sharing this, with the world. There's so many people struggling. They're
Yeah.
dark and black and hopeless, and there is hope. So I think that what you're doing is absolutely awesome. And I'm proud of you, and keep going one day at a time. And we will definitely talk soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Amy. It means a lot. Take care of yourself, and we will talk again soon, I hope.
Okay, sounds good. I'll
All
talk
right.
to you later.
Have a great day. Bye bye.
You too. Bye.